tiny alien girl feared the human would eat her. What happened next surprised both. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. The dust storm rolled across Valor, three like a wall of grinding sand and static, rattling the outer panels of the abandoned mining containers scattered across the plateau. Elias Ward pushed through the storm, visor flickering with warnings, the temperature gauge dropping as the wind sliced through his aging suit. His boots crunched over metal debris half buried in grit, each step echoing in the dead outpost like a man walking through somebody else's memories. He'd come out here for a routine salvage run, hoping to find anything useful to keep his failing generator alive for another week. But then he heard it, something small, thin, almost swallowed by the wind. A squeak, a chirp, something afraid. Elias froze, breath fogging inside his cracked faceplate. His scanner flicked once, then died with a weak beep. So he followed the sound the old-fashioned way, hand hovering near the side holster he almost never used. The storm parted just enough for him to see a toppled cargo crate, its corner wedged into the sand, metal groaning as the wind shoved it. And beneath it, movement. Tiny, trembling. He crouched, lifting the edge just enough for the light on his wrist to spill under. Two silver eyes stared back at him. A creature no bigger than his forearm, limbs thin and shaking, skin a pale green that looked almost luminescent under the dust. She let out a broken squeak, scrambling back until her spine hit the crate wall. His translator crackled, trying to make sense of her voice. What came out made him blink. Please, don't eat me. Elias almost choked. What? Kid? I'm not. But the little alien curled into herself, arms over her head, shoulders shaking violently, as if preparing for teeth to close around her. He stared, stunned, sand whipping against his armor. For a moment he forgot the cold, the storm, the beeping warnings. All he saw was a child terrified of him, a fear that didn't come from nowhere. Slowly, deliberately, he removed one glove and showed his empty hand. Hey, he said softly, loud enough for the translator. I don't eat people. I'm just trying to help. She peeked through her fingers, eyes huge, reflecting the blinking amber hazard light on his suit. Then her gaze darted to the rising storm behind him, the sky turning a sickly orange. She understood danger, but not him. He reached out, palm open, letting the wind sting his bare skin. She flinched, but didn't look away this time. Another tremor of fear ran through her voice as she whispered, Humans, take small ones, for food. Elias frowned. Not this human kid. The storm roared again, shaking the crate. Lightning cracked somewhere in the dust cloud. He had seconds to decide. He lifted the crate higher, bracing it with his shoulder, and extended his hand farther, almost touching the ground beside her rather than her directly. An invitation, not a grab. She stared at his hand like it was a trap, then at the storm, then at him. Finally, slowly, she crawled forward, one trembling step at a time, until she reached his palm and placed her tiny hand on it, barely a touch. And in that split second, with the world howling around them, Elias Ward realized something simple and heavy. This wasn't salvage. This was a rescue. And the tiny alien girl had no idea yet that he wasn't the monster she feared, but the only person who'd fight the storm for her. The storm had not eased by the time Elias carried the tiny alien girl against his chest, shielding her with the reinforced plates of his suit as he pushed through the howling grit. Every gust slammed into him like a wall of nails, rattling his visor as warning symbols flashed in angry red across his display. He kept one arm wrapped firmly around her, feeling her tremble through the layers of dust and fabric. Her breathing came in short, panicked bursts, barely audible above the storm. She clung to the seam of his suit with her small hands, as if she feared being dropped into the wind itself. When the outpost finally came into view, a squat metal shelter half buried in sand, his shoulders loosened with quiet relief. The reinforced door hissed. Open after a stubborn delay, pressure systems protesting the sudden shift. Warm, filtered air brushed against him. Inside, The lights flickered but held. He sealed the door behind them, shutting out the scream of the storm, leaving only the faint hum of the generator and the girl's soft whimpering. Elias knelt and gently set her on a folded thermal blanket near the heater. She immediately scrambled backward, pressing her back against the storage crate, silver eyes wide and darting, breath shaky with leftover terror. He raised both hands slowly, palms out. "Easy. You are safe." The translator hummed, repeated his words, and she flinched less this time. Her voice came out as a trembling whisper. You did not eat me." Elias blinked, taken off guard again. "No. I told you. I do not do that." She studied him with deep suspicion, her thin frame coiled tight, like a trapped animal. He could see every detail now under the steady glow of the heater light. She could not have weighed more than a couple of pounds. Soft green skin, long ears tucked flat against her skull, tiny ribs showing with every breath. A kid, just a kid. He reached into a storage cabinet, pulling out a small ration pack and a metal cup of warmed water. Her eyes followed each movement with alert fear, but this time she did not retreat farther. Elias set both items on the floor halfway between them and slid them gently toward her. "Food," he said. "Water. For you." The translator relayed the words. She stared at the ration pack as if it might explode, then pointed a shaking finger at it. "Is that a trick?" "No trick." He sat cross-legged on the floor to show he was not approaching. She stared at him for several seconds before inching closer to the ration pack. Her tiny claws fumbled with the wrapper. When she finally managed to open it and take a bite, she let out a startled noise, then looked at him with genuine confusion. "It tastes good," she whispered. "Why give it to me?" Elias shrugged lightly. "You were hungry." She stared at him as if that sentence did not align with anything she had been taught. After a long moment, she spoke again. "My name is Nira." "Elias," he said. "Elias Ward." She repeated his name slowly, carefully, as if testing the sound. "Elias Ward. You are strange." He huffed a soft breath that might have been a laugh. "You are not the first to say that." Another rumble of wind rattled the outer panels. Nira curled closer to the heater, but her eyes never fully left him. Eventually she asked, "Will the storm eat us?" He shook his head. "No. The shelter can handle it." She stared into the orange glow of the heater, her voice softer now. "My people always said humans take what they want. They take small ones. They do not help." Elias watched the fear lingering beneath her words and felt something settle heavy in his chest. "Maybe some do," he admitted quietly. "But not me." She toyed with the empty ration wrapper, thinking deeply. Then, slowly, she stood on shaky legs, walked closer, and sat within arm's reach of him, though still not touching. A silent gesture. Acceptance. The storm growled outside, but in the warm hum of the small shelter, the distance between them finally began to thaw. The storm dragged on for hours, its low roar seeping through the metal walls like a restless beast searching for a way inside. But the shelter held steady and warm, humming with the familiar pulse of the generator. Elias worked quietly at his small workstation, repairing a cracked power cell with steady hands while glancing occasionally toward Nira. The tiny alien girl sat curled near the heater, legs tucked beneath her, antenna-like ears rising and falling with every uncertain breath. She had finished the ration and was now holding the metal cup of warm water with both hands, as if it were a precious artifact. She watched Elias the entire time, not with fear anymore, but with a puzzled intensity, the kind a child might give to a riddle that refused to make sense. Finally she spoke, her voice fragile but steadier than before. "Why do you fix broken things?" Elias looked up from the power cell. "Because they need fixing." The translator relayed it, but she frowned, clearly unsatisfied. "But you do not get anything from it." "I get working equipment," he said. "And sometimes, I just get to do the right thing." She tilted her head, trying to process that, then pointed her small hand toward the outer wall. "This shelter, it is human-made, yes?" "Mostly," Elias answered. "The corporation built the outer shell. I modified the inside to survive longer." She tapped the floor lightly. "So if someone small, someone useless, was inside, you would still protect them?" He paused, the question hitting deeper than he expected. Elias leaned back against the wall and set the repaired power cell aside. "Nira," he said softly, "you are not useless." "That is what my colony said," she whispered, staring into the heater glow. They said I am too small, too weak, too slow. They said I cannot gather food. I cannot run fast. I cannot defend. Elias studied her, noticing the way her small shoulders tensed when she recited each flaw, as if repeating an old lesson carved into her bones. Well, he said gently, those sound like their opinions, not truths. She blinked up at him, surprised. Truths are what the strong say they are. My people know this. Elias shook his head. Not with humans. But humans are strong, she said, looking at the size of his hands compared to hers. You could crush me with one hand. Elias exhaled slowly. Strength is not for crushing. Nira stared at him for a long time, ears slowly rising as if her fear was melting layer by layer. The lights flickered once, making her jump. Instinctively, she scurried closer to Elias before stopping herself, cheeks flushing a deeper green. Sorry, she murmured. Habit. Elias gave a small, reassuring nod. You are safe. Even if the generator hiccups, the backup heater will hold. She edged closer again, this time intentionally. Her voice dropped to a whisper. My colony never let me stay near the warm places. They said I should get used to the cold in case I was left behind on purpose. Elias clenched his jaw at that. He reached slowly toward the blanket beside him, careful not to make any sudden move, and spread it open at his side. Come sit here, he said. It is warmer. Nira hesitated only a moment before inching across the metal floor and settling gently against the blanket, close enough that her shoulder brushed his sleeve. She tensed, expecting him to recoil. When he did not, she let out a tiny exhale, a sound almost like relief. Minutes passed like that. Quiet. Warm. Safe. Then she asked, barely audible, Elias Ward, if you found me again tomorrow, would you still save me? He looked down at her, seeing the hope. She was trying so hard to hide. Every single time, he said. The answer seemed to shake her. She pressed both hands to her chest as if trying to hold something inside. Then a strange vibration rippled through the air, soft and musical. Almost like a purr, but layered with harmonics he could feel in his ribs. Elias blinked. Is that you? Nira's eyes widened in embarrassment. I am sorry. It happens when I feel safe. Elias smiled faintly. Do not apologize. Outside, the storm howled against the metal. Inside, a tiny alien girl leaned into the warmth of a human she no longer feared, and for the first time, she allowed herself to believe that tomorrow might not be as cruel as yesterday. Morning on Valor. 3 came without sunlight. Instead, a dull amber glow seeped through the storm clouds, casting the outpost in a muted half-light that made everything look suspended in dust. Elias woke to the soft hum of the heater, and a faint weight pressed against his arm. Nira had curled up beside him during the night, her tiny frame barely rising and falling with each breath. For a moment he stayed still, letting her rest, noticing how her ears twitched with every sound, as if the world still frightened her even in sleep. When she finally stirred, blinking up at him, she scrambled back in alarm before remembering where she was. Her ears lowered shyly. I am sorry. I did not mean to sleep so close. Elias shook his head gently. It is all right. She watched him for a moment, still confused by human permissiveness, then glanced around as though checking if the shelter was truly still intact. The storm outside had calmed to a steady wind, dust sweeping across the metal walls. Elias grabbed his scanner, tapped it against his palm, and frowned when it refused to boot. Battery fried again, he muttered. Nira tilted her head. Is that bad? Only if we want to know what is waiting outside, he said. She walked to the door, placing her small hand on the metal surface as if listening to it. The air sounds calmer. The sand does not hit like before. Elias raised an eyebrow. You can hear the storm pressure? She nodded, ears pulsing softly. My kind can feel vibrations. The colony used us to find safe paths. It is one of the few things I was good at. Elias set the broken scanner aside. That is more useful than you think. Her eyes brightened a little, but she quickly looked down, unsure whether to believe him. He stood and began preparing gear. Power cells, water packs, a small medkit. Nira approached slowly. Are you leaving? Her voice quivered. No, Elias said firmly. We are checking the outer perimeter together. But you stay close. No wandering. Nira straightened, trying to imitate his seriousness. I will stay close. When he opened the reinforced door, a gust of dusty wind surged in. Nira squeaked and latched onto his pant leg before catching herself and releasing him. He stepped outside first, scanning the area visually while she trailed a step behind, ears rotating like tiny satellites. The landscape looked scraped bare by the storm. Dunes shifted into new ridges, and the mining equipment lay half-buried under layers of dust. As Elias approached the old storage units to check for structural damage, Nira tugged on his sleeve. Something moved. Elias instinctively reached for his sidearm. Where? She pointed to a tall ridge of sand. Beneath there. Heavy. Slow. Not storm vibration. Creature vibration. Elias crouched, studying the shifting layer. A rumble pulsed through the ground, subtle but real. You felt that before I did, he said quietly. Nira lowered her ears shyly. I can help. The ground trembled again, harder this time. Elias grabbed Nira and backed away just as the sand erupted. A metallic scavenger drone burst upward, its cracked carapace whirring erratically, optical sensors flickering red. It must have been damaged in the storm, running on corrupted programming. It scanned Elias, locked on, and charged with a violent buzz. Nira shrieked and darted behind him. Elias raised his arm shield, bracing himself as the drone slammed into it with a screech of metal. Sparks flew, lighting the dust-filled air. Run back inside, he ordered. But Nira stayed frozen, eyes wide, struggling to obey. The drone backed up for another charge. Elias gritted his teeth and prepared to intercept, but before he could move, Nira stepped forward, trembling, ears vibrating rapidly. A soft harmonic pulse rippled from her like a wave. The drone hesitated mid-charge, its sensors glitching as if confused. Elias blinked, astonished. Nira, what did you just do? She took a shaky breath. My kind use harmonic signals to disrupt predators. I have never tried it on metal. The drone's confusion lasted only a moment before its systems re-engaged, angrier than before. This time Elias moved fast, grabbing a fallen metal bar and slamming it into the drone's core panel, knocking it sideways. It writhed, sparked, then went still, lights dimming. Elias panted, lowering the bar. Nira rushed to him, climbing onto his boot in panic. I am sorry, she cried. I tried. Elias knelt, cupping his hands near her without touching her. Nira, you helped. You warned me. You stopped it for a moment. That mattered. She sniffed, blinking rapidly as her small body trembled. I did not slow you down. Not once, he said. She placed both tiny hands over her chest again, the way she had the night before, and whispered, Maybe. I am not useless. Elias glanced at the broken drone, then at the girl who had risked herself to help. No, he said softly. You never were. The wind swept across the ridge, but for the first time, Nira did not flinch from it. Instead, she stood beside him, as though deciding she would not fear the world if Elias Ward was in it. The wind settled into a low moan along the metal edges of the outpost as Elias and Nira returned inside, sealing the reinforced door behind them. The drone encounter had left dust streaks across his suit and a faint metallic smell lingering in the air, but Nira's small form perched on his shoulder seemed lighter somehow, as if she carried a new confidence with her. She hopped down onto the table, balancing carefully on the edge as she studied him with bright, curious eyes. You fought the metal predator, she said quietly, and you did not fear. Elias removed his helmet and rubbed the back of his neck. I feared plenty. I just did not have the luxury to show it. Nira's ears lifted slightly at that, processing the idea. Humans hide fear? Elias nodded. Sometimes. She sat with her knees pulled to her chest, watching him with a new expression, something between admiration and careful calculation, the way someone might watch a creature they thought they understood only to realize they had been wrong the entire time. Elias checked the generator output, the display flickering but holding steady. We need to stay inside until the air settles and the ridge stops shifting. After that, I want to see how far the storm carried the mining equipment. Nira tilted her head, blinking slowly. Is that why your kind came here? To take the metal from the ground? Mostly, Elias replied. To find minerals. To sell them. To keep the outposts alive. She looked around the small shelter, eyes drifting across the patched wires, the old heater, the stacked water packs. And you live here alone? Always. Elias paused, leaning against the counter. For a while now, yes. She lowered her eyes as if that piece of information troubled her more than she expected. My colony said humans do not like being alone. Elias shrugged. Some do, some do not. I did not choose it so much as I ended up with it. Nira inched closer on the table, peering up at him. Did your people leave you behind? The question hit harder than he let her see. Something like that, he said softly. Nira touched her tiny hand to the metal surface beside his arm, not quite touching him, but close enough that her warmth brushed the skin. Then you and I are the same. Elias looked at her, surprised. How so? We were both left, she said. But we are still here. Her words carried a quiet strength he had not heard from her before. The heater hummed, filling the silence between them. After a moment, Nira stood and stretched, her ears flicking as she tested the air again. The storm feels weaker, she murmured. The ground does not vibrate as hard. Elias raised an eyebrow. You can tell that without instruments. She nodded. Before my colony left, they used me to sense which caverns were safe to travel. Small ones like me can feel shifts through our bones. Elias leaned forward, genuinely impressed. That is a skill most advanced scanners do not have. You could save lives with that ability. She blinked up at him, stunned. Save? Yes, save. He watched understanding ripple slowly across her features, a dawning realization she had never allowed herself to imagine. But I am small, she whispered. Size does not measure worth, Elias said. What you did earlier with the drone proved that. Nira hugged her own arms, ears trembling softly. No one has ever said that to me. Before Elias could respond, a sharp crack echoed through the outpost walls. Nira startled, climbing up his shoulder in an instant. Elias froze, listening. Another crack, followed by a distant rumble beneath the sand. Earth shift, he muttered. The ridge outside must have collapsed. Nira's ears pulsed in quick vibrations. There is movement under the ground, she whispered. Big movement. Animal? Elias asked. Or another drone? She shook her head frantically. Not metal. Not creature. Something else. The rumble grew louder. Elias grabbed his helmet and sealed it. Nira, stay close. She clung to his collar as he moved toward the door. The ground shook again, harder this time, dust sprinkling from the ceiling. Nira's voice trembled. Elias Ward, something is coming. The lights flickered. The rumble became a roar. And in the dim, vibrating shelter, Elias felt a cold certainty settle into his bones. Whatever was out, there was not something the storm had merely uncovered. It was something the storm had awakened. The ground continued to tremble beneath the outpost, as if something massive was shifting through the sand just below the surface. Elias steadied himself against the wall, listening to the deep rumble that vibrated through the metal frame. Nira clung to his collar, her tiny body trembling so hard he could feel every shiver. Her ears pulsed in rapid waves, trying to interpret the vibrations the way her kind had been trained to do. It is moving closer, she whispered, voice cracking. It is not a creature, not a machine. It feels like, she hesitated, ears flattening. It feels like something waking up. Elias tightened the seals on his helmet and glanced toward the reinforced door as dust drifted down from the ceiling. Whatever it is big enough to cause structural stress. We need to get ahead of it. He grabbed his toolkit, slinging it over his shoulder, and adjusted the emergency beacon strap to the wall. It flickered weakly. The storm must have overloaded the energy line. Nira reached for the beacon with both hands. It is broken? It is damaged, Elias said, but not gone. If we can reach the relay outside, I might be able to boost the signal manually. Nira shook her head nervously. Outside is not safe. The ground is breaking. I know, Elias said quietly. But if that thing comes up beneath us, being inside will not save us. The rumble intensified, rising into a low growl that traveled up the metal supports like a warning. Nira flinched and dug her claws into the fabric of his suit. Elias Ward, my colony warned of something like this. The old one spoke of the deep crawlers. They live under the dunes. They do not come to the surface unless disturbed. Elias frowned. The storm must have unearthed its tunnels. Nira nodded, fear swirling in her eyes. They are blind. They move by vibration. They follow sound. They follow fear. Elias steadied her with a gentle hand. Then we move quietly. With a slow and controlled motion, he unlatched the reinforced door. A wave of hot, dry air swept in, carrying fine sand that sparkled in the dim orange haze outside. The landscape had changed again, dunes reshaped by the night's wind. Cracks spidered through the ground, pulsing with each underground shift. Elias stepped out first, boots sinking slightly into the soft surface. Nira perched on his shoulder, gripping tightly, but keeping her ears rotating in wide arcs. "It is to the east," she murmured. "Deep, but moving toward us." Elias adjusted his pace, careful not to stomp or drag his steps. The air was unnervingly silent now. No wind, no distant mechanical hum. Only the faint thumping beneath the earth like a heartbeat far too large to belong to anything natural. When they reached the communication relay tower, half buried in sand and leaning at a dangerous angle, Elias knelt beside the control panel and pried it open. Wires sparked weakly. He exhaled slowly. "Damage is worse than I thought." Nira crawled down his arm and perched on the corner of the panel, her hands hovering over the wires without touching them. "Can you fix it?" Elias nodded, though uncertainty bit at him. "I can try." He worked quickly, rewiring severed lines, bypassing burned circuits, and stabilizing the voltage manually. Every few seconds the ground pulsed again, warning them the deep crawler was drawing nearer. Nira trembled each time the vibration hit, her ears flicking sharply. "It is close. Too close. Elias Ward, we must leave." "Almost done," he muttered, twisting two cables together. A bright spark snapped across the panel. The relay flickered to life, its indicator light glowing weakly but steady. "There," Elias whispered. Signal restored. But before relief could settle, the ground split open less than 30 feet away, sending a wave of sand into the air. The deep crawler surged upward, a massive, plated creature with a mouth that opened like a mechanical drill, rows of hardened ridges sliding and grinding against each other. It let out a screech that rattled the metal tower and sent a shock wave through the dunes. Nira screamed and clung to Elias. He grabbed her tightly with one hand while securing the final wire with the other. "Nira, listen to me," he said urgently. "You said they track vibrations. Is there any way to confuse it? Distract it?" She shook, terrified. "Only if there is something louder. Something stronger. Something that feels alive." Elias looked at the communication relay buzzing weakly beside them. He had one idea. A reckless idea. "Nira," he whispered, "can your harmonic pulse travel through metal?" She froze, processing the question. "Yes. But why?" "Because if you send a pulse into the relay," Elias said, "we might be able to broadcast it across the ridge. The crawler will follow the stronger signal instead of us." Nira's ears shot up in alarm. "But if the signal is wrong, it will come here even faster." Elias met her eyes steadily. "Then we get the signal right." The crawler screeched again, burrowing toward them with terrifying speed. Elias lowered Nira toward the metal panel. "You can do this," he said softly. "I trust you." Nira's tiny hands pressed to the cold metal. Her body trembled. Her ears vibrated. And then, with a soft, rising hum, she released the strongest harmonic pulse she had ever produced. The relay absorbed it, lights flaring. The signal shot across the sand. The crawler halted, turned, and then, with a thunderous crash, it charged toward the false vibration, away from Elias and Nira. The ground shook violently as it disappeared into the distant dunes. Silence returned, broken only by Nira's shaky breathing. Elias lifted her gently. "You did it," he whispered. She looked at him with disbelief. "I saved us." "Yes," he said. "You saved us both." She clutched his collar, overwhelmed. "Elias Ward, humans do not fear small ones. They do not hate them." Elias held her close. "Not this human. And not ever." The wind finally returned, sweeping the sand smooth again, as if the planet itself had taken a breath of relief. The dunes stayed quiet long after the deep crawler vanished beyond the horizon, leaving only the settling dust and the faint echo of its passage. Elias kept. One hand braced on the relay tower, chest rising and falling with the rhythm of someone who had just survived something far larger than himself. Nira clung to his collar, her small chest heaving, ears trembling with leftover adrenaline. For a long moment neither of them spoke. The wind brushed across the sand with a softer breath now, as though the planet was finally willing to rest. Elias glanced at the relay's blinking light. "Signal is holding," he murmured, half to himself. "If the storm has not fried the satellite uplink, this should get someone's attention." Nira's voice was tiny and raw. "Someone like your people?" Hopefully, Elias said. This outpost has been off the grid for weeks. But that signal might bring help. Her ears lifted slightly. Help for you. Elias hesitated. Help for both of us. Nira blinked, startled as if the idea had never crossed her mind. But I am not human. Your kind does not mix with mine. Elias gave her a faint, tired smile. I do. She stared at him for a long moment, as if memorizing the expression. The breeze shifted again, carrying new vibrations along the sand. Nira stiffened instantly, claws gripping his suit. Elias tensed too, scanning the horizon. Another crawler? He whispered. Nira shook her head slowly, listening deeper than he could. No, this is light. Thin. Like footsteps. Human footsteps? Elias kept his voice low. Nira listened again. Heavy once. Too heavy for someone alone. Elias's stomach tightened. Scavengers. He immediately switched off his suit lights and crouched behind the half-buried relay tower. The outpost's isolation made it a magnet for scavenging crews, the kind that stripped abandoned sites and took whatever or whoever they wanted. Nira sensed the fear he did not voice aloud. They will not find us, she whispered, but even she did not sound convinced. Elias secured her against his chest and whispered, Stay quiet. Dark figures appeared at the edge of the ridge, silhouettes against the dusty sky. 6 of them. Their gear clanked as they moved, metal boots stamping the sand with careless force. A scavenger leader barked orders. Check the relay. Something pinged off it. Elias cursed silently. The signal he had repaired had not only reached friendly ears. Nira pressed her head against his suit, trembling. Elias looked down at her. If they see you, they will take you, he whispered. And I am not letting that happen. She swallowed hard. What will we do? Elias scanned the landscape. The dunes were too open. The outpost too far. The scavengers spread out, moving in a pattern like a tightening net. If he ran, they would see him. If he stayed, they would find him. Then he looked at Nira's tiny hands, still glowing faintly from the harmonic pulse she had used earlier. Can you distract them? He whispered. Her ears jerked in alarm. No. Humans hear everything. And my pulse would not confuse them. Not confuse, Elias said. But maybe lead them away. Her eyes widened. You want me to make a sound? A vibration? But they will follow it. Exactly, Elias murmured. They will think the crawler is near. The vibration will mimic its movement if it is low enough and wide enough. Nira shook her head frantically. But if they have sensors, they might shoot at it. Shoot at me. Elias cupped his hand gently around her without touching her. I will not let them. The scavengers were within 80 feet now, scanning the dunes with handheld trackers. One of them pointed directly toward Nira's faint heat signature. Over there. Elias had seconds. Nira, he whispered, I trust you. You can do this. Nira closed her eyes. Her ears flattened. Her body shook with fear. And then, with a sudden gasp, she pressed her small hands to the sand. A deep, rumbling vibration rippled through the dunes, rolling outward like the warning tremor of a massive creature rising from below. The scavengers spun in alarm. Crawler. Back up. Back up. Their formation broke instantly. 2 stumbled. 3 ran. 1 dropped his scanner in panic. The entire group retreated down the ridge as fast as they could scramble. Nira collapsed against Elias, exhausted. Her ears flickered weakly. Did it work? She whispered. Elias lifted her gently. Yes. You scared them off. She blinked at him, barely believing it. I scared humans. You did, Elias said, pride warming his voice. You saved us again. But as he carried her back toward the outpost, the relay light blinked a new pattern. A response signal. Someone out there had received their call. Nira looked up at him, uneasy. Is that good? Elias stared at the blinking light, feeling the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. I do not know yet, he whispered. But someone is coming. And in the quiet aftermath, the tiny alien girl tightened her hold on him, knowing that the next arrival might not be the kind of danger she could chase away with a vibration. The relay tower continued to blink with a steady rhythm, the signal pulsing across the dunes like a heartbeat calling out into an empty universe. Nira sat perched on Elias's shoulder as they retreated into the outpost, her small hands gripping the collar of his suit with a tension she could not hide. The door sealed behind them with a heavy hiss, locking out the shifting sands and the memory of scavengers fleeing from her false crawler vibrations. For a moment the shelter felt eerily quiet, the kind of silence that follows danger but does not erase it. Elias placed Nira gently on the table and activated the internal scanner. A small hologram projected into the air, flickering with static before stabilizing into a weak signal trace. "Someone received our call," he murmured. Nira hugged her knees, ears trembling. "Is it your people?" "Could be," Elias said. "Or another crew. Or the corporation. Or," he stopped, jaw tightening. Nira finished the sentence in a whisper. "Or something worse." Elias did not deny it. Instead, he adjusted the relay's receiver angle, amplifying the incoming ping. The hologram sharpened. A signature code appeared. Elias's shoulders stiffened immediately. "It is a ranger ship," he said, voice low. "A human one." Nira stared at him, confusion shifting into fear. "Is that good?" Elias exhaled slowly. "Ranger units do rescue operations. They help stranded workers. But they also deal with alien threats." Her ears flattened. "Threats? Like me?" Elias moved closer and placed his hand near her, not touching her, but forming a protective wall. "You are not a threat, and I will make sure they know that." Nira looked up at him with wide, uncertain eyes. "Humans do not believe small ones." "They will believe me," Elias said firmly. "They have to." Before Nira could respond, a new vibration traveled through the floor, gentle but rhythmic. Not a crawler. Not the wind. A landing approach. Elias turned off the lights except for a single emergency lamp. The interior dimmed into a warm, golden darkness. Nira shivered, instinctively crawling into the shadow of his arm. "Do not let them take me," she whispered. "Promise." Elias swallowed hard. "I promise." Outside, the sound grew louder. A thruster hum echoed across the dunes. The outpost trembled softly as a ship descended just beyond the ridge. Elias peeked through the narrow viewport. The craft was unmistakable. Matte gray armor, reinforced landing struts, the symbol of the human ranger corps emblazoned on the side. 3 figures stepped out, their suits sealed, visors glowing with scanning overlays. One swept a handheld detector across the sand. "Signal source located," a voice crackled through the comms. "Life signs minimal but present." Nira pressed her hands to her chest. "They will find me." Elias turned away from the window. "I will talk to them. Stay behind me. Do not make sudden movements." She nodded, though fear tightened every part of her small frame. When the Rangers reached the outpost door, they announced themselves with a mechanical knock. "This is Ranger Unit Kilo 6. If anyone is inside, respond now." Elias opened the door slowly, stepping out with both hands visible. "I am here," he said calmly. "Elias Ward, technician for Outpost 42. The ranger in front scanned him head to toe. "We received your distress signal. Are you injured? Are there hostiles?" "I am not injured," Elias said. "But the storm damaged our systems. And there were scavengers earlier." The ranger's visor flickered. "Our scanners detect a second life form." Elias tensed, but did not step aside. "Yes," he said, "but she is not a threat." That word hung heavy in the air. "She," the ranger repeated. "Is it an alien specimen?" Nira flinched at the term. Elias's voice grew tight. "She is a child." The rangers exchanged glances. One raised a scanning device. "Bring her out." Slowly. Elias's jaw clenched. "She is scared. Talk to her like a person, not a sample." The ranger stepped forward. "Protocol requires visual verification." Elias gently motioned toward the interior. Nira peeked from behind his leg, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light, ears pulled flat against her small head. The ranger froze. Even behind the visor, Elias could sense the shock. "She is tiny," the ranger whispered. Another lowered their weapon a fraction. The first ranger crouched slightly, adjusting their voice output to a softer pitch. "Hello there," they said. "We are here to help." Nira trembled, clutching Elias's pant leg. "Will you eat me?" she whispered. The ranger recoiled in horror. "What? No, absolutely not." Elias placed a protective hand near her. "She has been through enough." The ranger nodded. "Understood. We will classify her as a rescued dependent until command gives further instructions." Nira's eyes widened. "Rescued?" The ranger looked directly at her. "Yes. You are safe." Nira stepped forward just an inch, voice quivering. "Because Elias Ward said so?" The ranger nodded. "Because he said so." And in that moment, something shifted in Nira's face. A revelation. A truth. A world rewritten. Elias Ward was not just the human who saved her. He was the reason the galaxy itself would now see her differently.